I have always loved Halloween, or at least I thought I did. There is something about that night when everyone hides behind masks and pretends to be someone else. It's supposed to be harmless fun, but if you think about it, there is something unsettling about not knowing who's underneath. That year, I learned what real fear felt like. My name is Lily. I was 16 years old, and that Halloween night changed everything I thought I knew about people and about what might be hiding behind their faces. The party was held at an old event hall near the edge of our small town, the kind of place that had seen too many years, with cracked walls, dusty chandeliers, and that faint smell of something rotting behind the wooden panels. My friends, we are all going, and for once my parents actually let me go without supervision. I remember how excited I was as I put on my costume, a simple silver mask, a black dress, and a thin satin cape. I thought I looked mysterious. Looking back, I wish I had stayed home. When I arrived, the hall was already pulsing with music. Colored lights swept over the crowd, cutting through clouds of fake fog. People danced, laughed, screamed for fun. It was noisy, chaotic, the kind of atmosphere where you could lose yourself easily. Maybe too easily. For a while I did. I danced, took photos, drank too much sugary punch. But around midnight something shifted. I noticed someone standing by the far wall, tall, perfectly still, watching the crowd. He wore a black suit and a mask unlike any other. It wasn't plastic or paper like the others. It was made of some kind of smooth, dark material, shaped into a blank, expressionless face. No eyes, no mouth, just a black void where features should have been. It caught the light in a strange way, like the surface absorbed it. At first, I thought it was a prank, maybe someone trying to look creepy on purpose. But then I realized he wasn't moving. Everyone else was dancing or talking, but he just stood there, like a statue among the chaos. When our eyes met, or at least when I thought our eyes met, I felt a jolt in my chest, like a small electric shock. I don't know why, but I couldn't look away. Minutes passed, then without me noticing how it happened. He was suddenly closer. I hadn't seen him. Move drove the coward, yet there he was, standing beside me silent. I laughed nervously and said something like cool mask, but he didn't answer. He just tilted his head slightly, as if studying me. I thought maybe he couldn't hear me through the music, so I leaned in and repeated myself. Still nothing. I started to feel uneasy, but his stillness was magnetic. I felt like I was being pulled toward him without meaning to. Someone grabbed my arm. It was my friend Heather. Come dance, she shouted, dragging me away before I could say anything else. When I glanced back, he was gone, just vanished into the crowd. I told myself I was imagining things, that maybe he had gone to get a drink or stepped outside for air. But part of me already knew something wasn't right. As the night wore on, people started leaving, the music got quieter, and the energy faded. Eventually, only a few of us were left, cleaning up, lounging, exhausted. Then, even they left, I stayed behind for a few minutes, scrolling through photos I'd taken. That's when I noticed something strange. In every picture when I appeared, that same black masked figure was in the background, always slightly turned toward me. The air felt suddenly cold. I looked up and there he was again, standing at the far end of the hall, near the exit. No movement, no sound, just there. I thought maybe someone was playing a joke, so I walked toward him, telling myself to stop being paranoid. You really like that mask, huh? I said, trying to sound casual. He tilted his head again, slowly, deliberately. I got close enough to see that the mask's surface wasn't solid black after all. It was shifting, almost like smoke was swirling beneath it. My stomach twisted. Something about it felt alive. I reached out without thinking, wanting to touch it, maybe to prove to myself it was just rubber or plastic. He grabbed my wrist, not violently, but firm enough to stop me. His hand was ice cold. Take it off, I said quietly. I don't even know why I said it. It just came out, he didn't move. Let me see your face. He tilted his head again, further this time, and I heard something like a faint whisper, though I couldn't make out words. My phone flashlight flickered in my hand, even though I hadn't turned it on. Then the room went completely silent. The music had stopped long ago, but now even the hum of the old lights was gone. And then, in the reflection of one of the cracked mirrors on the wall, I saw it, not a face, not even a shadow. Inside the mask was a black void, like an open doorway into nothing. It wasn't a person at all. I stumbled backward, my heart hammering, every instinct in me screaming to run. But my body wouldn't respond. I managed to turn toward the exit, but the door that had been open all night was now shut tight. I pulled on the handle, nothing. When I turned back, he was right behind me. The whispering grew louder, like voices overlapping from far away. The lights flickered once, and suddenly I saw hundreds of faint outlines behind him, like faces trapped beneath the surface of the mask, screaming silently, their features pressed against the blackness, twisting in agony. I understood then. The mask wasn't just part of a costume, it was something ancient cursed, something that took people. He raised his hand and pressed the mask toward my face. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. The black surface ripped like liquid, stretching toward me. The last thing I remember was the cold, not the kind you feel on your skin, but deep inside, like my soul was freezing from within. When I opened my eyes, I was still in the hall. Morning light poured through the windows. The music equipment was gone. The decorations were gone. Even my phone was missing. At first, I thought it had all been a nightmare. Then I saw the reflection in the glass door. I was wearing the mask. No matter how hard I pull, it won't come off. And now, every night, I feel someone watching me from inside it, whispering, moving closer. I don't know whose turn it is next, but when they meet me on Halloween night, they will think it's just a costume too. Halloween was my favorite night of the year. I was 10 years old back then, and all that mattered to me was how much candy I could stuff into my bag before the night was over. Our neighborhood in Maple Hollow wasn't fancy or big, but on October 35, it felt like the best place in the world. Orange lights in every window, plastic skeletons hanging from porches, and the smell of pumpkins roasting in every yard. That night, my friends and I had a simple plan: go door to door, fill our bags, and stay out as long as we could before our parents called us home. We wore cheap costumes. Mine was a vampire cape and fake plastic fangs that didn't fit right. There was Mia dressed as a witch, Benny as a zombie, and my best friend Tyler as a werewolf. We were just kids, hyped up on sugar and adrenaline, logging too loudly in the cold autumn air. Everything was normal at first. Every door opened to smiling adults handing out candy. Every porch light that flicked on made us sprint over, shouting "Trick or treat" in our high-pitched voice. But as the night went on, we noticed a part of the street we'd never really gone to before. A sloped road that disappeared behind the trees at the end of our neighborhood. There was only one house down there, dark and crooked, like it didn't belong to the same world as ours. Tyler pointed at it. "That's the old Crawford house," he said, lowering his voice. "They said it's been empty for years." Mia shook her head. "No one lives there. My mom says a witch used to." We all laughed, but I could tell none of them wanted to go near it. The yard was overgrown, the fence half fallen, and the porch light, if there ever was on, had long stopped working. I don't know why I want to go. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe it was just the thought of being brave when everyone else was scared. I told them I'd go alone, and before they could stop me, I started walking down the path. The sound of my sneakers scratching the gravel was the only thing I could hear. Even the wind seemed to stop as I got closer. The house looked worse up close. The paint had peeled away. The wood beneath it, grey and swollen from years of rain. The windows were black, not dark like a house at night, but black like something thick was covering them from the inside. My hand shook as I raised it to knock on the door. Knock, knock. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then I heard the slow, dragging shuffle of footsteps. The door creaked open. A woman stood there, or what I thought was a woman. Her skin looked pale and waxy, like candle wax about to melt. She wore an old-fashioned dress, torn at the sleeves, and a faded black veil covered most of her face. For a second I thought it might just be someone in costume. It was Halloween after all. Trick or treat? I said, my voice shaking slightly. She didn't answer. She just stared at me through the veil. Her head tilted slightly to one side. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a single piece of candy. A round, red one wrapped in clear plastic. She placed it gently into my hand. Her fingers were ice cold. Thank you, I whispered, forcing a smile. But she still didn't say anything. The door closed slowly, without a sound, until it clicked shut. I ran back to my friends, half expecting them to laugh or cheer, but they were gone. I looked up and down the street, calling their names. The only sound that answered was the rustle of dry leaves across the pavement. I figured maybe they'd gone home without me. I didn't blame them. It was late and I was starting to feel tired too. By the time I got back home, the street lights had gone out one by one, leaving the neighborhood in a strange, quiet darkness. My parents were in the living room when I walked in. I smiled and said, I'm back. They both froze. My mom's face went pale. My dad stood up slowly. Who are you? My mom whispered. I laughed nervously, thinking it was a joke. It's me, Albert. But their faces didn't change. My dad reached for the phone. My mom stepped back, covering her mouth with her hand. I ran to the mirror in the hallway and froze. The face looking back at me wasn't mine. The eyes were sunken, the skin grayish and wrinkled like old paper. My hair, once short and messy, was long, thin and white. My small hands had turned bony, with dark veins running across them. I screamed. The sound that came out wasn't the voice of a 10-year-old boy. It was old, trembling, almost hollow. I stumbled backward, dropping my candy bag. The red candy the woman had given me rolled across the floor, stopping at my feet. The wrapping had come loose. Inside wasn't a candy at all. It was something small and shriveled, like a dried seed or a tooth. The room started spinning. My parents' voices faded until they were just distant echoes. I ran outside, desperate to find my friends, but the street looked different, older somehow. The houses were gone, replaced by empty fields and broken fences. The air was cold and heavy, smelling of rain and earth. Ahead of me the old Crawford house stood, but now it looked new. Fresh paint, lit windows, smoke curling from the chimney. And on the front porch the same woman waited, only now she didn't wear the veil. Her face was mine. She smiled, motioning for me to come closer. I felt my body move without control, my legs carrying me back toward the door I had knocked on just hours before. When I stepped inside, the air smelled of wax and something burning. Candles flickered everywhere. On a dusty table by the wall, I saw a row of glass jars, each one holding a single piece of red candy. Behind each one floated a tiny reflection of a face. One of them looked exactly like me. I screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the air itself. The woman placed a cold hand on my shoulder and whispered something I will never forget. Though I can't repeat it because I don't think it was in any human language. The lights dimmed, the floor trembled, my reflection in the jar blinked, and then everything went dark. I woke up at dawn, standing on the porch. The sun was rising and the street was empty again, but something was wrong. When I looked at the mailbox, it didn't say Crawford anymore. It said Albert family. The front door creaked open behind me, the smell of wax drifted out. Now every Halloween night I hear kids knocking on my door. I don't want to answer, but my hands move on their own. I give them each a single red candy. I watch them walk away, just like I did. And I wonder, when they go home, whose face will they see in the mirror? Halloween on campus had always been a big deal. Every year, students went all out, haunted dorms, themed parties, contests for the best costumes and the biggest pumpkins. I'd never been that into it before, but that year felt different. Maybe it was because it was my first semester living on campus, or maybe I just wanted to do something that would stand out. Either way, I decided I'd carve the biggest jack-o'-lantern anyone had ever seen. My name is Mia. I was 21 at the time, majoring in art history, and honestly, I was just trying to make new friends. I thought the giant pumpkin would be a fun project, something to draw people in. I found it at a farmer's market about 10 miles outside of town. A massive orange thing that barely fit in the back of my roommate's truck. The old farmer who sold it to me looked at me strangely when I handed him the money. You sure you want that one? He asked, his voice low. That one's been sitting longer than the rest. Folks say it ain't right. I laughed it off. It's perfect, I told him. I wish I'd listened. I took 3 people to roll it onto the front lawn of the campus art building. Everyone who walked by stopped to look. That thing's huge, one guy said, snapping a picture. You are insane, Mia, another shouted. I smiled, pretending their teasing didn't bother me. Inside, I was proud of what I'd found. That night, after classes, I brought out my carving tools. The air was cold and smelled faintly of burning leaves. The campus was quiet. Most students had gone off to parties. I dragged a work I dragged a work light outside, plugged it in, and set my music to play softly in the background. When I went to grab my carving knife, I noticed something strange. The knife I'd used earlier was gone. In its place, lying on the grass beside the pumpkin, was a different one. It looked old, ancient even. The blade was thin, blackened with age, and the handle was carved with unfamiliar symbols. At first, I thought one of my friends had left it as a prank, but when I picked it up, it felt heavy, colder than metal should feel, almost like it was absorbing the warmth from my skin. I hesitated, something about it made my stomach tighten. But then I laughed at myself. You are being ridiculous. I said under my breath and pressed the blade into the pumpkin's thick skin. The moment it sank in, I heard something, a faint whisper, so soft I almost thought it was the wind. I froze and looked around. The yard was empty, the trees were still. My music had stopped. I hadn't hit pause. I pulled the blade out, my hand shaking slightly, and that's when I saw it. Thin red streaks trailing down from the cut, mixing with the pumpkin's juice. I touched it, half expecting it to be sticky sap, but it smeared like blood. I dropped the knife immediately. For a few minutes I just stood there, staring at the pumpkin. The whispering returned, louder now, circling me. Though there was no one in sight, it wasn't one voice. It was dozens, some high-pitched, some deep, overlapping, repeating words I couldn't understand. And then the lights went out. The work lamp flickered once and died. My phone's flashlight refused to turn on. I backed away slowly, And as I did, I noticed a dim glow coming from inside the pumpkin. Two hollow eyes, perfectly carved, staring back at me. It hadn't even finished cutting the top. The eyes burned faintly at first, then brighter, like candles inside. But I hadn't put any candles in there. The whispers grew into low chanting. The air around me felt thick, heavy, like it was pressing against my chest. I tried to run, but my legs wouldn't move. The light from the pumpkin pulsed, and for a split second I saw a reflection on its surface. My own face twist and distort, like it was trapped behind the skin. Then everything went dark. I woke up in my dorm room hours later, lying on the floor. My clothes were damp, and my hands were stained orange. My roommate wasn't there. I stumbled to the bathroom, flicked on the light, and stared into the mirror. My reflection looked pale, hollow eyed. I told myself it was just stress. Maybe I'd passed out from exhaustion. Maybe the whole thing was a dream. But the next morning, people were gathering outside the art building. I joined the crowd, heart pounding, pretending to be just another onlooker. Police tape surrounded the area. Someone whispered, "Did you see it? It's gone." "The pumpkin?" I asked, trying to sound casual. They nodded. "Yeah, the big one you made. It's gone." But the girl hesitated. "There is something else." The officers were huddled near the spot where the pumpkin had been. I couldn't see clearly, so I pushed forward until one of them turned toward me. And that's when I saw what they were standing around. It was a pumpkin, smaller now, perfectly carved. Inside, flickering candlelight illuminated my face. The hollow eyes, the sharp grin, it was me. I felt bile rise in my throat. My hand went instinctively to my neck. The officer said something, but I couldn't hear. My vision blurred. The chanting I'd heard the night before returned, faint but constant, echoing inside my head. I ran. I don't even remember how I got back to my dorm. When I finally did, I locked the door, shut off all the lights, and tried to breathe. But the smell of pumpkin filled the room, sweet, rotting, thick. And then I saw it on my desk, right beside my books, the black-handled knife. Its blade was clean, the symbols glowing faintly red in the dark. I tried to throw it away, but every time I woke up it was back, on my desk, under my pillow, once even resting across my chest. The whispers never stopped after that. They grew louder each night. Sometimes they say my name, sometimes they just laugh. I don't know how long it's been now. I don't sleep anymore. The mirrors in my room show flickering candlelight, even when it's dark. And on the nights when the air feels too and on the nights when the air feels too still, too cold, I catch my reflection smiling back at me, even when I'm not smiling. Halloween's coming again. I can feel it. The others will find another pumpkin this year, one sitting too long in a field, one that doesn't quite belong. They'll think they are carving it for fun. They won't realize the knife will already be waiting for them. And when they see their own face glowing from inside that lantern, I'll be too late.